things on this buttress thing. Yes. Yeah, you would have thought you'd the other side you'd want a buttress. Yes.
We're in the last few days of our slightly under the radar 2020 season. We've been digging out here for what will be 3 weeks, interrupted by other field work, but 4 weeks in total. And what we're doing is trying to kind of polish off some of the stuff we started in 2019. We're excavating 3 slots we started last season that lie to the east of the bathhouse, the exterior of the bathhouse. We've got the bathhouse wall, the exterior wall running down here in front of me. And these slots are targeting the kind of exterior deposits, trying to see whether we can find any of the kind of material that's washed out of the drains into what we know is the large pre-Roman sort of Iron Age ditch which runs down, flanks the kind of eastern side of the bathhouse. And the slot just in front of me is one that myself and Carl have been excavating. We're encountering sort of lots of dump deposits of ash and charcoal, possibly rake out from hypercourse, etc., which look to have been sort of chucked out into what presumably would have been a fairly wet area. And cutting through some of these deposits, we're getting little drains. So there's a little kind of linear drain which runs perpendicular to the bath wall, and it's a story that we seem to be seeing in actually all of the slots. So taking in some of the deposits which were excavated last season from the top down, we've got some fairly substantial gravel surfaces, which presumably sort of little yard surfaces which are the exterior of the baths. But below that we're getting sort of possible sort of turf line, stabilisation layer, something which looks a bit like it's kind of built up quite slowly. Another possible little opus signinum crushed brick surface. But below this we're just getting a whole series of dump deposits. So you can see material that Carl is troweling at the moment, these really fine ash and clay lenses material which has all just been chucked out to the exterior of the baths. And then cutting through this we've got this linear trench here, just a little kind of drain. There's no sense of any kind of lining or anything at the base of it at the moment, but it looks as if occasionally they're just cutting these little drains out to kind of sluice water away from the baths. I've also in this slot excavated out the construction cut for this wall, for one of the phases of this wall. It's quite tricky because the wall has been reworked so many times. Working out which cut goes with which phase of wall isn't very easy, but you can see this linear trench sort of running parallel with the wall, which is filled up with this kind of very solid mortar deposit. This is the backfill of the construction trench. This is the middle of our 3 slots, slot 11 for what it's worth. And this slot, again, we cut through last season through a series of mortar surfaces, gravel surfaces. Not so much dump material here as we have in the slot that Carl's in, but what we did encounter was a fairly substantial drain, not quite like the drain that we've got over there, a wide cut which was filled with green sand blocks, possibly capping over the top of the drain. We haven't quite got to the base of it, and I don't think we will this year, but we've still got some green sand within this. So potentially underneath this we could have fairly juicy sort of drain deposit. This is our southernmost of the 3 slots that we started last season. One similar story at the top of the sequence. So we've got these kind of plaster surfaces, yellow gravel surfaces, a lot more kind of compact and continuous sort of resurfacing than we have further to the north. But we have a really interesting sequence in here though, because it looks as if we've got a number of these sort of stabilisation deposits, like little turf lines. So kind of thin silty bands where it looks as if grass has grown up, so that there's been a sort of hiatus. Getting earlier and below that we've got a substantial dump of material, gravel and clay. Looks as if they're sort of levelling up the whole area. This is potentially sort of contemporary with one of the sort of major rebuildings perhaps, that they're actually levelling up, or it's just because it's a very wet area. And below this we've got another one of these sort of interesting thin sort of silt bands, which really does look like a turf line, like a sort of another stabilisation, another period of inactivity, a hiatus. And that's sealing this really quite substantial dump of ceramic building material. And this ceramic building material is exclusively flue tile. There's nothing else in it. There's no sort of roof tile or brick, and it's all sort of chopped down into sort of fairly regular sizes. So it looks as if this is sort of originating from remodelling of the bathhouse interior. One of the rooms, or several of the rooms, where they're taking out the flue tiles because they're probably not as easy to reuse as the other building material, and they're dumping it in the ditch. And then below that, again, we're into kind of fairly sort of homogeneous dumps of material. And Dan's been working in this last couple of days, and he's sort of knocked through all these sort of dump deposits, thinking, oh, this is really great, we're going to get through this really quickly. And then he's found 2 drains, which is great. So another 2 drains, looking like they're coming out slightly sort of askew to the wall. And it just kind of indicates to us that we've dug in 3 places, and we've found numerous drain cuts that they must have been just digging these kind of short-lived drains all the way along the kind of edge of the bathhouse. Carl has just found this fairly large coin out of these dump deposits, which is great, really great for our dating. Obviously we can get dating from the pottery, but the coins are much more useful for kind of narrowing down the dates of these deposits. 3 days left really of the 2020 season. We've got until Friday, it's now Tuesday. However, there is an apocalyptic weather forecast, so I don't see that we'll be getting too much done over the next few days, but we'll be gradually covering back over and then waiting for next year. Well, hopefully we can see a few more people out here.